As chattel, we were prized. Then we were traumatized. We've been plagiarized. And now, I don't know if it's vandalism or what, but every time we climb a step, it seems like somebody, and especially our somebodies, try to knock us down, but they have not been able to. And I wanted to make sure that I put in this the part that we play. Before there were nations, before there were borders, before there were categories of race used to divide and rank humanity, there was Africa. Not as a slogan, but as an origin. Science tells us that humanity began there, that every human being walking this earth can trace their lineage in some way back to that soil. So when we say Africans, we are not just speaking of a place, we're speaking of a beginning, a human root. But history didn't evolve in unity. It evolved in power. And power learned how to divide, how to classify, how to conquer, and eventually how to justify it. Beginning in the 15th century, the world witnessed one of the most brutal systems ever organized, the transatlantic slave trade. Millions of Africans were not just moved, they were stolen, taken from language, culture, identity, and turned into commodities. So they tell me at the bottom of the New York Stock Exchange, they have cells, not workers, not citizens, property, chattel. That's what we were. Priced, traded, insured, and disposed of. Families were separated, names erased, humanity denied, and the trauma didn't just live in the moment. It embedded itself across generations, and yet even in chains, there was resistance. Because no system, no matter how violent, has ever fully crushed the human will to be free. When slavery in America formally ended after the Civil War, many believed freedom had finally arrived. Oh, but what arrived instead was evolution. The system changed form, not function. Jim Crow laws, segregation became legal, opportunity became restricted, violence became a tool of enforcement, and success, black success, became something dangerous. We saw the destruction of thriving communities like during the Tulsa Race Massacre, where excellence was not just envied, but erased. And what about all those cities that were actually drowned? And still we built. We built schools, businesses, and families because we were denied education, denied access, and we were denied the rights that other people had that didn't look like us. Then came the civil rights movement, led by voices like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, men who demanded that America live up to its own words. Laws changed, but systems adapted. Redlining drew invisible lines around opportunity. Schools remained unequal. Economic access stayed limited. And mass incarceration rose to a new form of control, less visible than change, but deeply impactful because as a prisoner, you were still a slave. They could work you for free or give you pennies on the hour. So yes, Africans and those of African descent have been ostracized, plagiarized, traumatized, and once, quite literally, prized as property. That is the truth. But truth, if it's going to set anything free, must be complete. And here is the part that we cannot ignore. What role do we play within the systems that have shaped us? Because no people are only acted upon, we also act. Now hear this clearly. This is not blame, this is responsibility. There is a difference because systems create conditions, but individuals create responses. And sometimes those responses under pressure, under trauma, under generations of distortion can begin to mirror the very systems we claim to fight. Internalized doubt, misplaced definitions of manhood, cycles of violence within our own communities, a lack of trust where unity is needed most. These are not signs or origins of the problem, but they can become extensions of it. When a black man measures his worth only by survival instead of growth, when he sees another black man as competition instead of ally, when he participates in behaviors that harm his own community, he is not the creator of the system, but he can unintentionally reinforce it like the gatekeeper. And that is the uncomfortable truth. But let me be just as clear on the other side of that truth. Black men have also been the backbone of resistance. They have led movements, protected families, created culture that the entire world imitates, and risen again and again under conditions designed to break them. So the story is not one of failure, it is one of extension between pressure and response, between system and self, between what was done to a people and what that people chooses to do next. Because survival alone is not the final victory. Transformation is. Transformation requires two things at the same time: the courage to confront systems and the discipline to confront ourselves. We cannot ignore the structures that still shape our outcomes today, but we can not surrender our agency to them, because the same history that produced trauma also produced resilience. The same story that produced oppression produced brilliance. From science to music, from leadership to innovation, people of African descent have influenced every corner of this modern world. This is not accidental. That is capacity. So the real question is not whether the past was unjust. It was. The real question is not whether systems still exist. They do. The real question, what do we do with both truths in our hands? Do we allow history to define limitation, or do we use that fuel for transformation? Because power is not just in what happened, power is in what happens next. And what happens next is shaped not only by systems, but by decisions, daily ones, collective ones, intentional ones. So yes, Africans have been here from the beginning. Yes, people of African descent have endured some of the harshest conditions imposed by human systems, and yes, those systems still echo today, but survival has already been proven. The question now is evolution. Evolution demands more awareness, alignment. Alignments begin with truth and action, between knowledge and behavior, between history and the future we choose to build from, because no system in history has survived forever. But people, determined people, have always outlasted them. So, we both have a part that we play. But nobody jumped on those ships willingly. And for all those who didn't believe